This is the Solar 101 for the Center County Solar and EV Charger Co-op. Um, and I want to start off by thanking our partners. They may be the way that you found out about this solar co-op. We have some excellent partners. We have many who we partnered with for the first round back in 2021, as well as a few new partners. So new to join us this year is Citizens Climate Lobby, the State College chapter, as well as the Penn State Sustainability Institute. And the other partners, the Center County, Ferguson Township, State College, Borough, Bellefonte, and the Sierra Club Moshannon Group, they are all folks that we partnered with last time, and we find their partnership really valuable. So I wanted to start off by just introducing Solar United Neighbors to you in case you're not familiar with us. We are a national nonprofit organization. Our model is that we help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. We are vendor neutral, meaning we are not associated with any installer. And what we really focus on is education, advocacy, and community outreach, specifically around rooftop solar. So in 2007, our founder, Anya Schoolman, this is Anya right here, she actually formed the very first solar co-op. She did that in her neighborhood in Mount Pleasant in Washington, D.C., and she helped her own family as well as 50 other homes in Mount Pleasant actually go solar. And thus, Solar United Neighbors was born. As of 2024, we have members in all 50 states. We actually have state programs in 11 states, as well as DC and Puerto Rico. We've run over 420 solar co-ops at this point and have helped more than 8,900 homes go solar with our co-ops. In Pennsylvania, we've actually had a program since 2018, and we've already been able to help over 190 people go solar. I'm not going to read all of the numbers, but they're numbers that we're very proud of. Our state is pretty new to adopting solar. You're seeing it more and more recently. But there's still some lag. And so we're very excited to be able to say that we've helped people actually go solar here in Pennsylvania. So tonight I'm going to cover basically three buckets of solar. The first is solar technology. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The first is how the co-op works. The second is solar technology. And the third is going to be the financials of going solar. I am going to stop the presentation at the end of every section and take any questions, but you're also welcome to put them into the chat at any point. And then we will be able to answer those questions. Chris might be able to answer them in the chat, and then I might also take them verbally and answer them live. So first is really talking about what is a solar co-op and what are the benefits of it. So I kind of alluded to it before, but a solar co-op is when a large group of people, they can be homeowners, nonprofits, or small business owners, go solar all at the same time through a single installer. The installer is able to bulk purchase materials and pass along savings to the co-op members at the same time that we at Sun provide consumer advocacy, technical guidance, support all throughout the process. So the benefits of a co-op are that you have a good value on installation, and we're going to talk about that in the third part of the presentation. You also get support throughout the process. We know that going solar, it's a big investment. It's it requires a lot of conversations, a lot of understanding technology, feeling comfortable with your installer, understanding the contract language. So we are really there to make sure that you feel like you understand everything that is going to be installed on your roof, everything that you're signing up for, and making sure that you are as confident as possible. We also, part of the co-op is that you get to connect with people in your area who also love solar. And more folks who love battery backup and who love electric vehicles and EV chargers. There's really a lot of love for EVs lately. And then you also become part of that growing solar movement we're seeing all across the country, but especially here in Pennsylvania. And so anyone who joins the co-op is able to get a free customized quote for a solar installation, battery backup, and or a level 2 EV charger. And you can get a quote for any one or combination of those things. So I want to talk a little bit about the co-op process. So it does typically take around 8 months. So we launched in March. We launched on March 11th. And then, the next step of the process is learning. So you all are here at the learning phase. We have lots of Solar 101s like this one, but we also do tabling events, just opportunities to really help you understand everything that's going into the process. And then at any point, you can sign up and become a co-op member. Signing up is free and there is no obligation to go solar or to go solar with the co-op installer. And then we also ask that you and the partners spread the word. So this is really important for making sure that we have a high number of co-op members, which actually leads to the installers bidding more competitively. So, in 2021, we ended up with about 140 co-op members. So that looks like a really good prize to an installer who's bidding. So we actually did not do this in month 3. We did it back in month 1, but at this point we would move to installer selection. So when we know that we're going to have enough co-op members, we issue what's called a request for proposals for installers that service Center County. And so this is asking installers to bid competitively to service the co-op. We at Sun, we check their references, we review their bids, make sure that they're properly licensed and insured. And then a group of co-op members actually gets together to review those bids. They go through them in great detail and choose a single installer that will service the entire co-op. And so, last night we actually had the selection committee, a group of co-op members met and chose the installer. I cannot announce the installer just yet. We have to go through the formal process to get them under contract to service the installer. But if you join the co-op, you should hear that announcement within the next couple of days. And then around month 4, in this case, month 5, the end of July is the last chance to join the co-op. This is, the last opportunity you're going to have to be able to get that free customized proposal. So all throughout, from when the installer is selected to this day, you will be able to get your free customized proposal. And your installer is going to sit down and look at your electric bill to get an idea of how much energy you're using over an average year. They're also going to talk to you about your energy needs. Are you planning on getting an EV charger that you might need to bump up the size of your system? Do you have kids moving out and you're actually going to use less energy next year? Things like that. They can incorporate all of that into a model to give you the best system that you could need. And then on September 20th is going to be the last day that you can sign a contract with the co-op installer. And at any point up to that day, you can walk away completely free, no penalty. But if you do choose to sign a contract with the installer, that will begin the installation process, which is typically another couple of months. They'll get you permission to operate, you'll get all interconnected, and then at the end, we have a party where we can celebrate all of the solar that was installed. People can show off photos of their new technology, which is very cool. It's just a really great moment to be able to meet people who are in your neighborhood, in your area, who have gone solar through the exact same process. And so I wanted to drill down a little bit on who actually chooses the installer. So remember, we at Sun, we are vendor neutral. We are not choosing the installer. It is co-op members who are in the driver's seat and actually making that selection. So when folks joined in that first month, they were able to join and say the priorities that they had when choosing an installer. So that might be some combination of price, equipment quality, warranties, experience, location, whether it's an equity focused installer company. And basically, the priorities of the entire co-op up to that point are combined and provided to the selection committee who makes the decision. And they basically choose an installer that best reflects the needs and the priorities of the entire co-op. And so I think it's a really good kind of holistic way to think about an installer, because just choosing an installer that maybe has the best price may not give you the best experience. And so in this case, you're really considering a number of factors. So I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions. So I see the first one from Jennifer is how many are in the co-op already? Right now we have 16. Yep, and Chris answered that. Perfect. Any other
Is there any
questions?
minimum?
Is there a minimum to the number of co-op members? No, there is not. We've had, in Pennsylvania, we had really big co-ops. We had 200 people in Pittsburgh once, and then we've also had very small co-ops because they were in super rural southwestern PA. So we've really had kind of the entire spectrum. But we are going to be open until July. We have a goal of 125 co-op members. I don't think we're going to have a problem reaching that. But again, it is important to like invite your neighbors and coworkers, friends into the co-op. If there's somebody who's been talking about solar and just doesn't know where to start, this is a good way for them to learn a little bit more. Any other questions about the co-op process or Sun? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I am going to move on to the next section, which is solar technology. So when we're talking about solar, it's really a shorthand for solar photovoltaic or solar PV. That is the technology that converts solar energy or light into electricity. You may also be familiar with solar thermal, but that is not what we're talking about tonight. So at the heart of a solar panel or a solar module is silicon. That is still the predominant technology. It's these little blue squares in this image over here. And silicon is what is actually doing the light absorption and then creating the charge that turns into electricity. So everything else that makes up your panel or your module is actually there to protect those solar cells so that they can exist outside on your roof enduring the elements for 25 years. That's the lifetime of a solar panel. So we've got some polymer encapsulant, tempered glass, an aluminum frame. So really there to make sure that these panels can endure rain, snow, sleet, hail, wind, all of the elements. And so when you take a series of panels and string them together, you have a solar array. And now when you look at somebody's home and you see a number of panels installed on it, the way that you would think about how like that actual installation is in terms of size. So we talk about kilowatts, which is a unit of power, and that's 1,000 watts. The reason that we talk about systems in terms of kilowatts is because each panel is actually rated at a different wattage, the same way that a light bulb would be. So in the example below, we actually have 12 panels that each are 350 watts. So when you string them all together, you have 4,200 watt system or a 4.2 kilowatt system. And then just for reference, the average sized system in Pennsylvania for residential is somewhere between 4 and 15 kilowatts. It can be as big as 50 kilowatts, but that is a massive residential system. And then really the size of your system is going to depend on your personal needs. So, what is your budget? How much roof space do you have? Are you planning on covering 100% of your annual consumption? Would you just want to cover maybe 60%? That's really all going to go in to impact the size of your system. And then I said, kilowatts are power. Now, if you take a kilowatt and extend it over time, that is a kilowatt hour or your energy. That, is the unit you're going to see on your electric bill. So you might be familiar with that. So the panels are actually mounted firmly to your roof. In this case, this is an asphalt shingle roof. It's very common. With the shingle roofs, what they're going to do is actually drill a hole through your roof right down to your rafters to make sure that it's a really secure connection. And then they will put silicone sealant around that penetration point. And then you can actually see these squares of metal. This is called flashing. And that goes right over the penetration point as well. That way, all water actually shears away entirely and makes it really waterproof installation. And then we also have options for metal roofs. So this is a standing seam metal roof. This is really nice because you can actually just clamp the panels to those seams, and then you have no penetration. You don't have to worry about leaks at all. And then there are also some options for flat roofs that are a ballasted system where they weigh down the panels. So different installers offer different solutions for different types of roofs. Some may not work on some roof types. So that's one of the things with the co-op is we actually show you up front which types of roofs are covered by the installer. Now, when you're thinking about going solar and whether or not your roof is a good match for going solar, there are 4 different criteria for thinking this through. The first is that you want your roof to be southerly facing, and that's just because we're in the northern hemisphere, and it can be as far north as like due west and a little bit north of that, but really you do want to make sure that it's more southerly facing. The second criteria is that you want as little shading as possible. Panels can handle a little bit of shading difference from, trees and nearby buildings, but it is a solar panel at the end of the day. It really wants to see the sun. And then the third is that you need to have enough space to actually mount the panels on your roof. So the industry standard is kind of a minimum of about 250 square feet. Any less than that, and it's going to be too small that it's just not economically viable for you to go solar. And that does need to be a contiguous space. So every time your roof is broken up by chimneys or dormers, vents, that's really just introducing disconnection, which is going to cause inefficiencies with your system. And then the final criteria for a good solar ready roof is that you do want it to be a relatively new, undamaged roof. So solar panels last for 25 years. In an ideal world, you would put your solar panels up and then just leave them there for their entire lifetime. But if you have an older roof and you mount solar to it, you're going to have to pay to have the solar panels taken down and then repair and replace the roof, and then pay to put the solar panels back up. That can be thousands of dollars and pretty cost prohibitive for a lot of folks. So for an asphalt shingle roof, they last about 30 years. So we do recommend that your shingle roof be no older than about 10 years old. If you have a metal roof, those last 50 years, so you do have a little bit more wiggle room there. Now, if you don't have a good roof for solar, or you just don't want a rooftop mounted solar system. Ground mounting is always an option. There are some pros and cons for ground mounting compared to rooftop solar. So, one of the biggest drawbacks to ground mounting systems is just cost. It is almost always more expensive to go with a ground mounted system, and that's because they have to pour concrete and build scaffolding for the actual support system. And then they're also going to do trenching to bury the power lines to carry the power from the system back to your meter. However, there are some major benefits to a ground mounted system. So with rooftop, you're really limited to kind of the pitch and orientation of your roof. But with ground mounted systems, you can position the panels so that they are perfectly optimized to collect sunlight from your yard. The other thing is that you actually have all of this airflow around the panels. When they're mounted to your rooftop, they're going to be kind of flush to the roof and there isn't as much air circulation. That air circulation actually keeps them colder, and that is really good for solar panels. It makes them run much more efficiently. So again, pros and cons, but the installers who are offering ground mounted systems, they'll talk you through, is this a good option for you? And when you join the co-op, will ask you for your address, and you're able to move a pin on the map of your home. And if you're thinking about doing ground mounted system, you just put the pin kind of where you're generally thinking about. And likewise, if you've got multiple structures on your property, maybe you've got a barn or a garage separate from your home, and that's where you're thinking about putting solar, you just want to move the pin over to that location. It helps us to give you a good review for how suitable your space is for solar. Okay, so the solar panels are going to be soaking up sunshine. They're creating what's called DC, direct current. Your home actually uses alternating current, AC. So we have an inverter that actually switches the DC into AC so that it's usable in your home. The inverter is also the computerized brain of your system. So it is going to be doing calculations to make sure it's optimizing the performance of your panels at any given moment. That they're kind of what calculate, if this panel over here is more shaded than this panel, we're going to try and adjust to maximize output for this one. Your inverter is what does that. The other thing that it does is it kind of monitors your panels and lets you see your output and kind of the efficiency of the panels over the course of the day. So it's really cool. You'll get monitoring software that you can, download as an app on your phone or a computer, and you can check out like how much energy your panels are producing during the day. I have met so many solar homeowners who will, pull up the app on their phone and show it to me just to show that they've got solar, and I love that. I love seeing it. And so I guess the only thing that I want to spend a little bit more time on here is just that there are a few different options for inverters. You don't have to have a preference and you don't need to understand the difference between them. But basically these top two options, they are going to be more for rooftop systems, and the string inverter is more for ground mounted systems. And your installer will talk you through the best option for your panels and for your situation. And then for electrical panels, you may need to get an upgrade if you've got an older or smaller electrical panel, but often it's a really simple connection, especially in a newer home. It's really easy. And if you do have the need to upgrade your panel, that's actually pricing that you're going to get a quote for from the outset. So that's one of the really nice things about the co-op, is that you get this package of kind of a la carte, all of the things you could possibly need to go solar, and it's going to include all of the prices That way there are no surprises kind of at the 11th hour, you'll know, oh, a panel upgrade is going to cost me 200 bucks. Okay, great. So I think now what we're going to do is kind of put everything together so you can see how the solar interacts with your home. So in this example, the solar panels are soaking up sunshine. They're generating that DC. It's going to the inverter where it's switching to alternating current, and that feeds into the general energy mix of the electric panel. From there, it's going to go in and power any loads in your home. Anything that is excess, that's actually not, if you're generating more than you might be using in your house, that is now going to go to your utility meter, which is bi-directional. So your utility is actually going to come out and swap out your meter. So it's bi-directional once you go solar. And then that excess energy is going to feed to the grid. So you can see in this example, you've got a grid-tied system that is still the most common and cost-effective way of going solar in Pennsylvania. So at this point, I really like to introduce the concept of net metering. So net metering is the accounting mechanism that your utility is going to use for all of that excess energy that you send from your home to the grid. So all of that excess energy, every kilowatt hour that you send to the grid, you will get a credit on your electric bill for a kilowatt hour of energy at full retail rate. That is really good. That is a Pennsylvania policy that basically says solar energy is of equal value to the energy that you purchase from the utility. So really, really good policy. And the other nice thing is that because you're still grid tied, you're actually able, when the sun goes down, you're still going to be powered, even if your solar panels aren't absorbing any light at that point. So you're never going to be without power. Now, the way that you see net metering is actually on your electric bill. So this is a Penelec bill. So it may look a little bit different to what you're used to seeing, but I really love this example. I think it's very good. So this is a bill for February to March. So not super sunny month. And basically this customer started the month with 1,135 kilowatt hours in their bank. That's what they had rolled over to that point. So at this month, they took from the grid to their home 725 kilowatt hours from the grid, and then they sent from their system to the grid 718 kilowatt hours. So that is a net loss of 7 kilowatt hours. So their bank, they were able to spend down by 7 kilowatt hours, and they were left with a bank of 1,128 kilowatt hours. On top of that, they produced all of the energy that they needed apart from that amount that they spent down from their bank. So their bill had started off at $98 and by the end was reduced down to basically just that fixed customer charge of $10. And that fixed customer charge, you are going to pay it every month. It's going to be about it's somewhere between $10 and $25 depending on which utility you're in. But this is what we mean when we say that solar is paying for itself. So one other thing that I should mention, or maybe a couple other things, because net metering can get complicated. So the first thing is that all of those banked hours do roll over month to month. Now your annual billing cycle runs from June 1st to May 31st. Come May 31st, you have a true up period. At that point, any excess kilowatt hour credits that you still have in your bank, you're going to be credited for them at a reduced rate. It's not going to be the retail rate anymore. It's going to be the lower price to compare rate. So that's why it's actually kind of smarter to size your system for 100% of your annual energy usage. If you oversize your system, you're not going to be you're not going to be getting money back, or not at the same rate as you would if it's just 100% of your annual usage. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that net metering at full retail rate is required by law from investor-owned utilities, so West Penn Power, if you're on default service. If you purchase your energy from an alternate retail supplier, so if you shop on PA Power Switch, you are not going to get that full retail rate. So if you go solar, just make sure that you switch back to default service. Okay, and so one of the most common questions that we get from solar owners is my utility net metering me correctly? I will tell you, this is a very difficult question. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be hard to tell, right? Because it's your data, you're the one who's producing. It should be really easy to just like look at the numbers, see are they adding up. Unfortunately, there's a lot going on with your energy production. There's the production itself, but then there's how much you're consuming in your home, how much are you sending to the grid, and how much are you taking from the grid. So that's 4 pieces of data. And you, on your electric bill, you're only going to see how much you take and how much you receive. You can get an idea of how much you're consuming from your inverters, but what you don't have any insight to necessarily is your consumption. How much are you actually using from your solar panels in your home? That is why we recommend that you install a consumption monitor at the same time that you go solar. Some inverters have the consumption meter already built into it, and some you have to install separately. It's something that your installer is going to be able to offer you. It's typically, if not included, is typically an additional $200 to $600, but it really gives you the complete picture of your energy production and usage. So this is an example of consumption monitoring. So this is somebody's solar production over the course of the day. And you can see, it maxes out around like 12, 1 o'clock. That's about when they start using energy in their home. So all of this consumption is going to be pulling straight from their solar energy. But then all of this production is going to go to the grid. And then around, 8, when the sun sets, they're still pulling energy they're consuming in their home, but there's no energy coming from their solar system anymore. So all of this will be coming from the grid. So that's a really good way to get numbers associated with your production and your consumption. And then, I said at the beginning, the solar co-op allows you to get pricing for solar, for a level 2 EV charger, and or for battery backup. So I spent a lot of time on solar. I just want to talk a little bit about the EV charger and the battery backup. So one of the really nice things about getting an electric vehicle and charging it with solar that you're generating is that you can actually see where your fuel is coming from. And your energy costs are really going to be levelized. You pay one price for the solar, typically upfront, and that stays the same over the lifetime of the panels. So you're not going to have those major swings in pricing the way you do with gas. And the cost of your energy is not going to be dependent on, geopolitical wars, which unfortunately is like all too common. So this is an example that I showed. Actually, I want to start here. So this is what I mean about the cost of solar is actually levelized. So you pay one price for your solar system. If you pay up front, every bit of that 25 years is the same cost of solar, whereas the price of gas is constantly changing. In this example, this is grid energy, which is also almost constantly increasing. So at the bottom, I have an example of a gas-powered car compared to a comparable electric vehicle. So in both cases, we're assuming 13,500 miles per year, which is about average, and a 30 mile per gallon fuel economy. So I took some Center County average gas prices, about 360 per gallon. This was a couple of weeks ago, so it may have changed already. And the average person is going to be spending $1,600 on gas per year. If you are able to pair an electric vehicle with solar, so this car, it requires 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. And we're looking at the average cost of electricity in Pennsylvania is about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Then by pairing solar with your electric vehicle, you're actually saving 2/3 of the cost of fuel, and now paying less than $600 on fuel per year. And then the thing that I said was that the level 2 EV charger is what's being offered through the co-op. If you're not familiar with electric vehicles, when you buy one from a dealer, you're going to get the level 1 charger, which is really just kind of your standard plug, goes into a regular outlet, 120 volt outlet. It's a pretty slow charging speed. It's about 4 to 6 miles of charge per hour. A level 2 is an upgraded, faster charging unit. So it does require an upgraded outlet to a 240 volt outlet. And the charging speed is much faster. You're looking at 10 to 30 miles of charge per hour. They also have typically about a 3-year warranty, sometimes a little bit more. And then in the next section, I am going to show some examples for what you can expect for the price of an electric vehicle charger. And so the last section I want to cover is on battery backup. So one very common misconception with solar is that because you see you're generating your own power, people think that if the sun is out but the power around me goes down, I will be fine. I will continue to have power. That is not true, because if you are grid tied, your system will be back feeding energy into the grid. And this becomes an electrocution hazard for any line workers who are trying to make repairs. So if you have solar and West Penn has an outage, you will also have a power outage in your home. So some folks have a lot of outages, and in this chart up above, you can see that there are actually an increasing number of power outages over time. These are customers who experience 8 hours of power interruption, and you can see how much it's increased. So I'm not sure. I've heard West Penn Power doesn't have really long power outages, maybe a couple in the past few years. Where I am, we don't have a ton of power outages that last very long. So batteries are still pretty expensive. However, if you have, those critical loads like medical equipment, well pumps, things that really need to be powered during an outage, battery backup is going to be key for you. It's going to be how you keep power during an outage. However, like I said, they're still pretty expensive. They're about 10 years behind where solar is. So the prices are coming down gradually. It's just they're, for the average customer, they might not be the right option for you. But part of the co-op is being able to see how much it's going to cost for getting battery backup. And then one other thing that we tell folks who are considering battery but maybe not ready to install it right now is, if you go solar and you think you're pretty sure you're gonna go solar, or you're gonna add battery backup in the next couple of years, talk to your installer. They can design your system so it's really easy for them to come in a couple of years and just pop a battery into place. Otherwise, you're gonna have to call out an electrician, have them do drywall work. So it's much more expensive. So if you are pretty sure, tell your installer and they can, make sure that it's a good setup for later. And then, I talked about it very quickly, but we do have a really good battery storage guide for homeowners. as well as a webinar that really gets into like the nitty-gritty of battery backup. So I highly recommend checking out our website, the storage page, if you have further questions. And then I'm just going to run through some frequently asked questions that we get, and then I'll pause for any questions that are either in the chat or that you have had over the course of this section. So the first is about warranties that would cover your system. So there are three types of warranties. The first is just a product warranty. This is like a manufacturer's warranty. It'll cover the panels as well as inverters will have them. So an inverter warranty is typically about 10 to 15 years. And then panels are warranted in general for 25 years. There are a couple that are warranted for 12 years, but the industry standard is really that 25-year warranty. The second type of warranty is a workmanship warranty. So this is going to come from your installer, and this can really cover anything from 1 year to 25 years. And it's going to cover any damage done to your home during installation. So any leaks in your roof, if they were to break something, or just any other kind of damage done during installation. And then the final warranty is going to apply to your panels. And this also comes from the manufacturer. It's called a power production warranty. And this will tell you over the course of the lifetime of the panel, it's going to degrade in efficiency by X%. That way, you know it's never going to be ridiculously inefficient. Most of these are going to be, by year 25, you're looking at 80% efficiency of the original, like day one efficiency. The other way you'll see it sometimes is every year it will degrade by no more than 1%, something like that. Okay, so the second question is about how your homeowner's insurance is going to be affected by solar. So you will want to add solar to your homeowners insurance coverage. They're going to be the ones who are insuring your system against any kind of damage specifically done by weather events. Now, solar is adding to your property value, which goes into the calculation for your premium. So in general, your premium may go up, but it is not a significant amount. There is also the chance that you may have an insurer that has a sustainability initiative or a green initiative, in which case you may actually receive a discount for having gone solar. But you will want to check in the first place just so that and you can kind of shop around if it seems like a really exorbitant increase in your premium. Solar is, maintenance free, really. That's one of the selling points to it. It's graded, it's on a slope, so you don't, snow's going to slide off of it. Rain's going to help clean any pollen or dust that gets on it. We do recommend that about year 5, you have somebody come out and look at it, make sure that everything is still looking good. And your installer is going to be able to give you a recommendation for somebody who can do that. And you'll also be watching the system and your power production from your inverter software. So you will have a pretty good idea of if something looks weird. And then we've talked about this a couple of times, but a solar system lasts for 25 years. That doesn't mean that, 25 years and one day the system just like turns off. It just means that you're getting less and less efficient at producing electricity after that. But it is, it's a long-term investment. It is a 25-year investment. So if you're planning on moving or selling your home kind of in the near future, it might not be a good time for you to go solar. That being said, solar adds to your property value, so you may be able to recoup some of that cost when you sell. So, just, I guess all this to say, it is a long-lasting system. And then with the co-op, Sometimes people are confused because of the model of the co-op, but you are the homeowner, the one who is signing the contract with the installer. So it is your solar system. You are going to be financially responsible for it. It is installed on your roof. Nobody else will have ownership of it. And then if you're in a homeowners association or a historic district, typically what happens is you need to apply either for an additional permit or just apply to be allowed to add solar. Now, they have some restrictions often about where you can place solar on your home. It might need to be on, a rooftop that's not facing a street or, restrictions like that. So you do want to read your guiding documents, any guidance from your historic district about whether or not you are allowed to add solar. And then your installer is also going to be able to have conversations with your HOA or the district to answer any questions that they have. And then if you have concerns or issues along the way, also talk to us. We have lots of resources. We'd love to help you with it. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and see if we have any questions. Chris, are you able to read some from the chat if we have any?
Yeah, I have a quick one for you regarding the size of the electric service. So if you have a 100 amp system in your house, do you need to upgrade to a 200 amp system?
Um, I'm not positive because I don't know how much of your breaker box is spoken for, so it's kind of hard to like say specifically. Often 100 amps is a little bit small for a solar system, so they might upgrade you. They might add a sub panel. There are kind of a few different options, but I would definitely talk to your installer. One of the first things they're going to do is a site visit, and they'll come out, they'll look at your roof, and then they'll also look at your panel, your electric box, just to see what they're working with. And they'll tell you pretty early on in the process what you're going to need to upgrade to.
Um, cool. I think I've handled a few of the other questions in there. Um, and uh,
Good to move on?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So final section, and this is the one that most people are interested in, is the financials of going solar. So solar has really come down in cost over the past few decades since it was, first launched on the market. You can see there the price exponentially decreasing since the 1970s, but even just within the past decade to 15 years, we've seen costs drop 65%. So solar is becoming much more accessible. More people of different incomes are able to go solar. Um, and a lot of that is actually due to things like net metering because you're being paid or credited for your solar energy. So it's a really good return on your investment. Um, and then the other piece is I wanted to talk about the value of solar and the solar co-op. So, we are not able to say by joining the co-op, you're going to for sure save X%. We are not bidding for the installers. We don't know how they're going to bid, what kind of discount they're going to offer. We're not selecting the installers. But I will tell you that we've seen kind of the price like the average price that a co-op member saves by going solar with a co-op and looked at it nationally. And we can say that on average, a co-op member is going to save 10 to 15% compared to somebody who goes solar on their own. Now, the reason that that's true is that um, it's really in how the price of solar breaks down. So we've got three different kind of pieces making up the price of solar. So the first is your system component. So that's going to be, the panels, the inverters, racking, wiring, all of those physical pieces. They've largely come down in price since 2010 and kind of leveled off. We're now seeing some fluctuations related um, to inflation, but also, like it's really marginal changes on the price at this point. The same is true for labor costs. They're pretty static at this point. And that's that green sliver kind of there in the center. And then the last piece is soft costs. Now, this may surprise you, but soft costs are really, they can be more than half of the total cost of going solar. It's all of those pieces that, it's your permitting applications, it's all of the conversations your installers have to have with the permitting office in the first place. It's marketing and customer acquisition from the installer. So all of that kind of gets wrapped up into soft costs. And um, the way that the co-op is able to help folks save money is, first, the installer is going to be bulk purchasing modules and inverters because they know that they're going to be working with a lot of people. So they save money there. They also are now able to save money on customer acquisition and marketing because this large group of homeowners who are, well educated around solar are coming to them with interest in solar. So they can take all of those savings and pass them on to you. This is a table that really goes through the pricing of a solar system. So I want to mainly focus on this column for the 10 kilowatt system. This is about the average size system for a Pennsylvania co-op member. But I will say that all the trends you're going to see scale with the size of the system. So first, we're going to look at the average price of solar for a Pennsylvania co-op member, which is about $2.70 per watt, and that's all included. And so at that price, your system will cost you $27,000. That's your sticker price. Now, the next year, when you file your taxes, if you have the tax appetite, you will be able to reduce your taxes by 30% of the total cost of going solar. So you can reduce your taxes by $8,100. So really your net cost you're looking at is just about $19,000. Now that first year, you're going to be saving money every single month on your electric bill, the way I showed you earlier. And accumulating those savings, that first year, you're looking at about $1,700 in savings, and that's going to continue over the lifetime of the system. And even as your system is getting less efficient over time, your solar energy is actually valued more and more over time because of all of those rate increases that your utility is going through. Every time their rate increases, your solar is now of higher value because you're being net metered at full retail rate. So by the end of the lifetime of the system, you will have saved $50,000 in electric bills compared to the $19,000 that you spent on the system. Now, there is also an additional source of income from solar. This is called the Solar Renewable Energy Credit, or an SREC. This is every time your system produces 1,000 kilowatt hours or 1 megawatt hour and sends it to the grid. It is producing a solar renewable energy credit, one SREC. And these are credits that are bought and sold on a market. You're selling them, your utility is buying them. It's how they say that they're producing so much solar energy that's required by law. They're not allowed to produce energy themselves, so they buy it from you, and that credit then gets applied to them. So you're making $30 for every SREC that you produce. And we, estimated it for first 5 years. That is, just because of market fluctuations. So you would be expecting another source of revenue of about $1,800 over that first 5 years. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the federal tax credit. So it is non-refundable, but it is a 30% tax credit that is the federal solar investment tax credit. It was actually increased back to 30% back in 2022 with the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's been extended out to 2032, which is really incredible. And then it does step down after that. So gone are the years of worrying, oh, do I need to get my system installed this year to be able to get the tax credit? You won't have to worry about that for another decade, which we love. All right, and then I wanted to talk about the different ways that you can pay for solar. So the first is just the cash option. It's, the highest upfront cost, but after that, you're really maximizing savings. Everything after that is just, savings on your electric bills. Now, there is a grant option that is called the USDA Rural Energy for America Program, or REAP. This is applicable to farmers and to rural small businesses. And we have a ton of resources around REAP. So if this is something that interests you, it can pay for 50% of the total cost of going solar, but you do have to apply. So, if this is something that interests you, I'm going to have our email address at the end. Definitely let us know. We would love to be able to help you with that. And then finally, you can also finance your system. And I'm going to talk through some of the options, but I wanted to also include our website for financing. There is so much good information on that webpage. So highly recommend going to look at it if you want to learn more and get more resources around financing. So basically, there are going to be people like falling over themselves to give you loans to pay for solar. You could open a home equity line of credit, can refinance. There are going to be loans available from most installers will help you finance. And then as a solar co-op member, you'll have access to the Clean Energy Credit Union or Community First Credit Unions. These are really good low interest loans for solar. But, all of this to say, there are going to be so many different options that we really just recommend that you look very carefully, shop around, make sure, you understand all the terms of the loans, and reach out to us if you have questions. We are happy to help you understand all of these terms because it can get very confusing. But we have an example here. It's for those same two systems that I showed you before, the 5 kilowatt and the 10 kilowatt. And then here we're looking at a home equity line of credit that is a 4% interest rate. And this homeowner is putting 30% down and then taking that 30% tax credit. And, for this 10 kilowatt system, we're looking at two different loans. First is a 10-year loan, and the second is a 15-year loan. And so you can see your monthly loan payment is going to be lower, of course, for the 15-year loan. And you're going to have those savings on your electric bill. And so really it's a question of, do you want to pay more and pay off your system faster? Or do you need to be saving money right now? In which case you would go with the 15-year loan. And then, of course, all of these net profit values at the bottom you see are going to be less than if you paid with the cash option. That's pretty much always going to be true. But there's a lot to consider, and so we just want to make sure that you're thinking about what is your month to month looking like? Do you need to save money now, or are you trying to pay it off as quickly as possible? And then I guess the one thing that I should say is that payback period is when your solar system pays itself off. The average in Pennsylvania with the cash option is typically about 8 to 12 years. So, you're extending it a little bit with that, with the loan, with the financing. And then I said before, I was going to talk a little bit about electric vehicle chargers. So the unit itself can be between I would say really starting at 500, and can go upwards. I've actually met people who bought charging stations on Amazon or, online, and then hired somebody to help them do the outlet upgrade. So, you can really get the charging units kind of anywhere. The installation itself can vary widely because it can be a really simple outlet upgrade, but it could also be drywall work. It could be a long wire length, and that wire length can add cost to it. So the total cost we typically see, I would say, not so much $1,000, but typically between 25 and 4,000 is what I tend to see in Pennsylvania. But, a lot more folks are going the EV route, and we find that about half of homeowners who have solar or an electric vehicle actually have both. There are a lot of people who, once they adopt one of those technologies, they decide they want to adopt the other as well. And there are a lot of incentives for electric vehicles at the federal and at the state level. And we have some of those incentives actually listed on our co-op webpage that I included right here. So highly recommend that you check those out. And they can help you, some of those incentives can help you save up to $1,000 on that level 2 EV charger. And this is our co-op webpage, solarunitedneighbors.org/Center County. And so when you go to this page, this orange button is how you join the co-op. So if you haven't seen this page, you're not part of the co-op yet, just head there, hit join, and you'll fill out information. We'll get your address and be able to do the remote roof review. Again, it's free and there's no obligation. Now, if you come down here, you can see we've got some updates, events coming up. So we've got a happy hour coming up, solar tour, some cabling opportunities, lots of good things. So definitely check that out. And then over here, the EV info tab, that's where you're going to find those incentives. So there's so much information on this page. I definitely recommend looking at it. And then I'm going to pause here to actually put out a poll. So the solar co-op is, it's really only successful if we get a lot of people who are able to join the co-op. And so we're asking you, co-op members, to share information and invite people in your network to join the co-op as well. So if you know neighbors or co-workers, friends, family who might be interested in solar, might be interested in an EV charger or battery backup, there are lots of different ways to share information with them, as low level as like sending them an email with the recording of this webinar, or just sharing the web page with them, to, tabling with us. We would love to have you at some of those tabling events, or sharing on social media. So I'm just going to leave this poll up for a little bit. I see some folks have already started responding. I really appreciate that. But if you are interested in learning a little bit more, our community impact specialist, Morgan, will reach out to you and let you know different ways that you can get involved. So I'm going to pause here. And Chris, are there any questions?
I think there might be a question for after the record is paused, about community solar in Pennsylvania.
Okay, yep, sounds good. All right, I'm gonna give it another couple of seconds just for anybody else who would like to respond to the poll, but really appreciate the folks that have responded and said that you're interested in learning more. I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. Okay, end it there and move on. So this is really the end of the presentation. I've included the website so that you can go either join the co-op or just learn more about it. And then at the in the center there is our team email address, pateam@solarunitedneighbors.org. So if you have questions after watching all of this and looking around the website, please do reach out to us. And then we will also be sharing news about the installer that the co-op members chose for the